A fashion designer invited her seamstress to a show to humiliate her. But when she stepped up, the crowd was stunned. Lucia's workshop smelled like sweat, burnt thread, and the cheap coffee that had been sitting in the pot for 3 days straight. It was a cluttered dump, a tiny room stuck onto the back of an old house, with walls peeling like bad paint, and a window that wouldn't budge past halfway. She sat hunched over a creaky wooden chair that groaned every time she shifted, stitching a black evening dress under a lamp that flickered like it was on its last breath. At 48, Lucía looked older than her years. Gray hair yanked into a messy bun, eyes sunken from squinting in dim light, back curved from a lifetime at the needle. Her hands, rough as sandpaper and shaking just a bit, pushed the thread through the fabric. It was 6 in the evening, and the March heat clung like a wet blanket, the kind of sticky warmth that wouldn't quit. Lucía wiped the sweat off her forehead with the back of her hand and let out a ragged sigh. She'd been up 3 nights running, sewing until her fingers throbbed, all to hit Martina's deadline. It was the same old grind, crazy schedules. Martina snapping over the phone if a seam wasn't flawless, and a paycheck that barely covered rent and a few groceries. But this dress, this one hit different. She'd felt it the second Martina tossed her the crumpled sketch. It was sleek, with a cut that flowed like a river and golden embroidery she'd pitched herself. For once, sewing didn't feel like a noose. It felt like something alive. The door slammed open, and Lucía jumped. The needle stabbed her finger, a bead of blood spotting the fabric. "Damn it," she hissed, sucking the cut as she glanced up. Martina barged in like she owned the place, decked out in a tight red dress, heels clicking sharp on the concrete floor, and a wave of pricey perfume cutting through the workshop's stale stink. She clutched a black envelope with gold trim, her face sporting a smile that didn't feel right. Too tight, too sharp. "Lucía, you're still messing with that," Martina said, dumping her purse onto a chair buried under fabric scraps. "I figured you'd be done by now. The show's tomorrow, you know." Lucía pressed her lips tight and dropped her eyes to the dress. "It's almost there. Just gotta finish the hem and double-check the embroidery. It's coming out nice, don't you think?" Martina stepped up, leaning over the table like she was sizing up something she didn't fully understand. Her red-painted nails grazed the fabric, fishing for a flaw. "Yeah, I guess it's okay," she said, shrugging. "That embroidery, though, didn't I say make it finer? Looks kinda sloppy." Lucía's gut twisted. She'd poured hours into that embroidery, every stitch measured, every thread placed to catch the light. "Sloppy," she echoed, voice barely above a whisper. "I thought, doesn't matter what you think, Lucía," Martina snapped, standing straight. "You sew, I design. That's the deal. Anyway, I didn't come here to nitpick. Got something for you." Lucía frowned on edge. Martina never brought good news. Last time it was a pile of defective fabric she had to salvage for nothing. "For me?" she asked, wiping her hands on the grimy apron slung over her lap. Martina dangled the black envelope like it was a carrot. "An invite. Tomorrow's my big show, the biggest yet, and I want you to come." The workshop went dead quiet, just the fan's tired hum buzzing in the background. Lucía blinked, sure she'd heard wrong. "The show," she said, voice catching. "Me?" "Yeah, you," Martina shot back, her laugh edged like a razor. "Who else? You stitched it all, didn't you? The dresses, the skirts, those little improvements you're so proud of. Be a pity if you missed it." A flicker of heat climbed Lucía's chest. 15 years breaking her back for Martina, and not once had she been invited anywhere. She was the grunt, the one who sewed until her hands bled while Martina basked in the spotlight. "You serious?" she asked, her voice cracking from exhaustion. "I don't even know what to say." "Don't say anything, just show," Martina said, slapping the envelope onto the table with a sharp tap. "Downtown, the big venue. 8 sharp. Don't drag your feet. It's going to be one hell of a night. Lucía eyed the envelope like it might bite her. She picked it up with shaky fingers and cracked it open. Inside, a black card gleamed with gold letters. Martina Valdez, Fall 2025 Collection, Exclusive Invitation. Her name was scratched in Martina's perfect cursive in the corner. A knot tightened in her chest, half fear, half something she hadn't felt in years. "I don't have clothes for that," she blurted, looking up. "All I've got is what I wear here. I'd stick out like a sore thumb at a show." Martina let out a short, nasty laugh. "Oh, Lucía, don't make a scene. Come as you are." "No." "Big deal. No one's gonna clock you anyway. Besides, it's your night too, right?" She winked, snagged her purse, and spun around. "See you tomorrow. Finish that dress. No screw-ups." The door banged shut, and the workshop sank back into its heavy stillness. Lucía stared at the envelope, the dress, the needle still jabbed into the fabric. For a heartbeat, she let herself dream, walking into that fancy place, seeing her stitches glow under the lights, maybe catching a whisper of applause that was hers too. But then the other thought crept in, the one that always tagged along. Martina wasn't straight. That smile, that laugh, something was crooked. She shook it off and dove back into the dress. Still hours to go, and she couldn't half-ass it. The needle scraped against the fabric, blending with the fan's drone, and her mind churned. What if it was a trap? What if Martina just wanted to make her the butt of some joke? But then she pictured the dress, how her hands had shaped something beautiful out of nothing, and told herself it was worth the gamble. Just this once. It was 11 when she wrapped up. The dress was damn near perfect, or as close as she could get with Martina's clock ticking. She hung it on a beat-up hanger and stepped back, hands on her hips. The black fabric fell soft, and the gold embroidery shimmered even under the workshop's crummy light. "It's not sloppy," she muttered, needing to say it out loud. "It's gorgeous." She slumped into the chair, drained. The workshop was a disaster, threads littering the floor, an empty coffee mug on the table, scissors lost under a pile of scraps. She didn't have the juice to tidy up. Pulling the invite out. Again she read it slow, like it might spill a secret. Exclusive invitation. Lucía Ramirez. No mix-up. It was for her. With a groan, she hauled herself up and shuffled to the little room she called home next door. It was a closet with a sagging bed, a wobbly table, and a cracked mirror, bolted to the wall. She yanked open the squeaky closet, worn-out pants, faded work shirts, a pair of shoes with soles hanging on by a thread. The only half-decent thing was a black dress she'd sewn years back, when she still had time to make stuff for herself. She held it up in the mirror. Plain, no bells or whistles, but it fit, or used to, before the grind stole her appetite. "What if I go?" she said to the empty room, a habit when no one else was around. "What's the worst that happens? Nothing. I just want to see the dress up there, that's all." But the doubt gnawed, sharp and stubborn. Martina didn't do kindness without strings. There was that favor that ended with Lucía sewing a freebie for Martina's buddy, or the new design she got reamed for tweaking. Martina played dirty, lift you up with one hand, knock you down with the other. Lucía tossed the dress on the bed and sat, invite clutched tight. She thought about her life, years hunched over a machine for others, nights alone, cash that vanished too fast. She thought about her mom, another seamstress who'd taught her the trade but wore herself out too young. "Don't let them walk all over you, kid," she'd say. But Lucía had, time and again, because fighting back wasn't her game. She glared at the invite and decided. She'd go. Not for Martina, not for claps, but for herself. For the dress. For every damn stitch she'd bled into it. She deserved that much. Sleep didn't come that night. She stayed up, patching a rip in her black dress, ironing it with an old clunker that hissed steam like it was mad. Every few minutes, she peeked at the invite, parked on the table beside a candle she kept for blackouts. The workshop was hushed, just street sounds drifting in, a dog yapping, a motorcycle tearing by, neighbors bickering. But her head was a riot, spinning with the show, the lights, the crowd. She saw Martina showing off the dress, maybe dropping her name. Lucía made it, she'd say, and Lucía would feel something close to pride. Then the flip side hit. Martina laughing, the crowd gawking at her like a clown, her rough hands and ratty clothes laid bare. She shoved it down and kept ironing. Fear couldn't win this time. At 5, when the sky started graying, she took a cold shower and slipped on the dress. She checked the cracked mirror, raking her gray hair with her fingers, wrestling the bun into something decent. No makeup, but she pinched her cheeks for a little color. Not awful, she mumbled. Not really sold. Back in the workshop, she wrapped the dress in plastic to keep it pristine. She'd haul it over herself, like always, with big jobs. But this wasn't just a drop-off. This time she'd see it shine. She stepped outside, bag in one hand, invite in the other. The air was crisp, the sun creeping up. She trudged to the bus stop, dodging stares from neighbors who clocked her dressed up at dawn. The bus was jammed with early risers, but she nabbed a back seat, hugging the bag. Staring out the window as the city blurred past, she let herself dream, just for a second. She hit Martina's downtown studio by 7. It was a bigger, cleaner joint than hers, a madhouse of models trying on outfits, assistants barking into phones, a guy snapping pics. Lucía walked in, feeling like she'd wandered into the wrong movie. A young girl with a headset spotted her and scowled. "Who are you?" she snapped, like Lucía was a stray. "I'm Lucía. Got the dress," she said, hoisting the bag. The girl sighed and waved her in. "Dump it on the table. Don't mess with anything, all right?" Lucía nodded and set it down where she pointed. She scanned for Martina, but no dice. The place buzzed. Tall, skinny models in stuff she'd sewn, none giving her a glance. She was about to split when Martina came down a staircase, coffee in hand. "Lucía," she called, voice laced with that usual bite. "What are you doing? Here so early?" "Brought the dress," Lucía said, nodding at the bag. "It's ready." Martina strutted over and ripped the dress out, holding it up like she was hunting for dirt. Yeah, it's all right. Could be sharper, but it'll pass." Lucía's fists balled, but she bit her tongue. Martina flung the dress back on the table and gave her a once-over. "That what you're wearing tonight?" Lucía's face went hot. "It's all I've got. But, yeah, I'm coming. Thanks for asking me." Martina's smile was pure venom wrapped in sugar. "Awesome. 8 o'clock then. Don't flake, Lucía. It's gonna be a night you'll never shake." She spun off, yelling at a model. Lucía stood there, alone in the storm, invite crumpled in her grip. She didn't know what was coming, didn't know Martina was across town, cackling with her posse, plotting how to tear her apart in front of everyone. The day crawled. She went back to her workshop, swept a little, ate some stale bread with cheese and waited. At 6, she checked the mirror, smoothed the dress, and headed out. She didn't know what she was walking into. Didn't know Martina's scheme. But she wanted to see her dress up there. Wanted to feel just once like she wasn't nothing. "You grab anything yet?" Raúl asked, shoving a tiny sandwich her way. "These won't fill you, but it's better than nothing." Lucía flinched, caught off guard. "No thanks," she muttered, eyes on the floor. "I'm fine." "You don't look like the type for these gigs," he said, chewing loud. "You tight with Martina or something?" "Kind of," she lied, staring at her shoes. "I work with her." Raúl grunted something garbled and went back to his drink. Lucía sank deeper into her seat. The show stretched on, and she felt more like a ghost every minute. No one knew her, no one saw her hands in every thread. But it didn't matter. She just wanted her dress. An hour later, her feet were killing her and the heat had her sweating under the dress. She thought about bailing, catching the last bus home and calling it quits. Then the model stepped out. She was skinny, black hair pulled tight in a high ponytail, wearing the dress. Lucia's dress. The black fabric flowed like silk and the gold embroidery blazed under the lights like it was alive. Lucía leaned forward, mouth dry as dust. It was breathtaking, better than she'd ever pictured. The model moved slow, spun in the center, and the crowd went nuts, clapping louder than they had all night. "This is the soul of the collection," Martina said back at the mic. "Darkness and light, grit and grace, my masterpiece." Lucia's chest burned. My masterpiece. She wanted to jump up and scream it was hers, that she'd poured her blood and sleepless nights into it. But she stayed rooted, watching the model vanish. The applause kept going, and Martina soaked it up, glowing. "Nice, right?" the nasal woman said to Raúl, leaning over. "Martina nailed this one." Same old, Raúl shrugged. "But yeah, it's solid." Lucía didn't say a word. She stared at the empty runway, heart banging in her ears. Seeing it like that made the trip worth it. She could split now, she figured, grab the bus and fade back to her quiet life. But Martina's voice cut in again. "Hang on, folks," she said, raising a hand to quiet the claps. "Before we wrap, I've got something special. There's someone here who deserves a nod. Someone who made all this happen." Lucía frowned. The room hushed, waiting. Martina turned, zeroing in on her in the back row. "Lucía, where you at? Get up here." Her heart flatlined. Head swiveled, hunting her down, and she felt every stare like a knife. "Me," she whispered, but no one caught it. Raúl gaped. "You're Lucía," he said, mouth stuffed. "Move it, go." She didn't want to budge, wanted to melt into her seat, unseen. But Martina kept calling, that smile now a jagged edge. "Come on, Lucía, don't hide. Up to the stage." No escape. Legs wobbling, she stood. The room blurred into a mess of faces, all sizing her up. She shuffled down the aisle, dress rubbing. Her legs, shoes clacking loud. Whispers trailed her, a few chuckles. A woman with pearls muttered to her buddy and they snickered behind their hands. She hit the runway and Martina stuck out a hand. Lucía grabbed it, hauling herself up, standing under the lights. The heat was a furnace, the glare blinding. She stared at the floor, lost. "Here's Lucía," Martina said, slapping a hand on her shoulder like they were besties. "My seamstress. The one who handles all the dirty work, huh, Lucía?" The crowd laughed, awkward and thin. Lucía glanced up, thrown. Martina pointed to the back where the model in the black dress strutted out again. "Take a look," she went on, voice dripping poison. "Isn't it crazy someone like her can sew something that good? With those clumsy, ugly hands?" The room went still as death. Some laughed harder, others squirmed. Lucía's face caught fire, the ground dropping out from under her. Martina's words slammed her, one after another, and she couldn't move. Wanted to bolt, but her legs were cement. The crowd buzzed, weak claps, pitying stares. Martina stepped back, smug as hell, arms raised like she'd scored a touchdown. "What's up, Lucía?" she said, leaning close with that nasty grin. "Not gonna say a word? Come on. It's your big moment." Lucía's mouth opened, but nothing came. Tears stung, and the dress on the runway mocked her. Then, from the back, a voice roared, "Enough of this crap." The venue was packed to the gills when Lucía rolled up at 7:30. She'd thrown on her black dress, the one she'd ironed that morning, and her beat-up shoes that pinched her toes raw. It was a massive building downtown, all white, columns and lights that screamed cash. Outside, slick cars lined the curb. Guys in black suits muttered into earpieces. and women in dresses that sparkled like glass strutted around. Lucía hopped off the bus 2 blocks back, clutching her invite, not wanting anyone to clock her stepping out of a grimy city ride. She hit the entrance, and a big guy with a headset gave her the once-over. "Name?" he grunted like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Lucía Ramirez," she said, flashing the black card with gold lettering. He scrolled his phone, scrunched his face, then jerked his head. "Inside, back row, right side." She stepped in, and the air slammed her. Perfume, fresh flowers, some sweet tang she couldn't pin down. The place was huge, ceiling high, with chandeliers dripping light, a long runway slicing through the middle, flanked by white chairs. The crowd was already settled, loud with laughs and clinking glasses. Men with watches worth more than her whole life. Women with nails done up and hair straight out of a glossy ad. Lucía felt like a stray sock in a designer boutique. She hustled to the back row, keeping her head low. Eyes tracked her, or she swore they did. A woman in a green dress loaded with feathers smirked and leaned into her friend, who let out a snicker. Lucía sank into a chair on the edge, hands knotted in her lap. The seat was stiff, like it was telling her to beat it quick. The runway sat empty, but lights played over it, red, blue, white. A DJ spun mellow beats in one corner, and waiters zipped around with trays of fizzy drinks and bite-sized snacks she wouldn't touch. "This champagne or what?" a stocky guy to her left, Raúl, asked, sniffing a glass before chugging it. "Tastes off." "It's Prosecco," the nasal-voiced woman next to him fired back, like he'd offended her personally. "Don't be so low rent, Raúl." Lucía caught their chatter without trying, but kept her mouth shut. She dug out the invite again, just to be sure it was real. Martina Valdez, Fall 2025 Collection. Her name scrawled in the corner, 15 years busting her hump for Martina, and this was her first shot at the inside. But that knot in her stomach wouldn't loosen. Something was sour. She could feel it in her bones. 8 hit, and the lights dropped. The music shifted, a spotlight nailing the runway's end. The crowd clapped before anything even happened. Lucía straightened up, heart thumping hard. She wanted to see her dress, the one she'd sewn until her fingers screamed, the one she'd wrapped up that morning. She pictured the model strutting. Out, the black fabric flowing smooth, the gold embroidery popping under the lights. For a second, she let herself feel a spark of pride. Martina hit the stage first, striding out like royalty in that tight red dress, heels snapping like gunfire. The applause exploded, and she threw her arms wide, flashing a grin straight out of a toothpaste commercial. Lucía watched from her little corner, feeling small, a tangle of awe and bitterness churning inside. "Good evening, friends," Martina said, snagging a mic and planting herself at the runway's edge. "Thanks for showing up. Tonight's a big deal. This collection's my heart, my vision, my everything. You're about to see it breathe." The crowd clapped again, and Martina spun, bowing like she'd just won an Oscar. Lucía swallowed. A lump. "My vision," she'd said, like Lucía hadn't burned the midnight oil making it happen. But that was Martina, scooping up the glory while Lucía swept the scraps. The first model floated out, a tall girl with legs for days, draped in a white dress Lucía knew inside out. She'd stitched it 2 weeks back, battling fabric that fell apart if you looked at it wrong. The crowd hummed, some clapped, and Martina kept talking. "This is purity, elegant stripped down," she said as the model twirled and slipped away. "Every detail's on purpose, every line's a masterpiece." Lucía bit her lip. She'd reworked that dress's cut because Martina's sketch was a bust. But she stayed quiet, waiting for her dress. More models rolled through, a grey skirt that had snapped 3 needles, a green jacket she'd hand-sewn because the machine couldn't hack the buttons. Every piece was hers, and every cheer went straight to Martina. The shout ripped through the room like a gunshot. "Enough of this crap," thundered from the back, and the crowd's chatter snapped off like a switch. Lucía stood shaking on the stage, hands gripping her old dress, face burning red under the lights. Martina jerked back a step, her smile locked in place but her eyes darting wild to track the voice. The spotlight swung, catching a woman rising from the front row like she was ready to tear the place down. It was Carla. Lucía didn't know her from a hole in the wall, but the whole room did. She was tall, with short silver-grey hair and a fake fur coat slung over her shoulders like a cape. Her black boots pounded the floor as she stormed toward the stage, face set hard, eyes blazing. The silence got so thick you could hear the buzz of the lights overhead. Martina tried to laugh it off, a shaky little huff that didn't land. "Excuse me?" she said, fumbling with the mic in her sweaty hands. "What's your deal, Carla?" Carla didn't bite right away. She climbed onto the stage, brushing past Martina like she was invisible. She stopped beside Lucía, so close. Lucía caught a blast of her sharp, fancy perfume that made her head spin. She didn't know where to look, down at the floor or up at this woman, so she just stood there, frozen, heart slamming in her chest. The crowd didn't twitch. Some leaned forward, others whispered low. Raúl, the hefty guy in the back, plunked his Prosecco glass on his chair and crossed his arms. "This just got juicy," he muttered to the nasal woman beside him, who nodded, eyes glued to the drama. Carla sucked in a deep breath and locked onto Martina, staring her down. "What the hell do you think you're pulling here?" she asked. Voice low but slicing through like a blade, holding back a storm. Martina blinked fast, still scrambling to keep her cool. "What? I'm just giving a shout-out to my crew, Carla. Lucía's my seamstress and—" "Your seamstress," Carla cut her off, stepping closer. Martina flinched hard. "That's all she is to you? Some poor sap you can haul up here and trash like a cheap joke?" Lucía's head snapped up, lost. Carla's words hit like a punch, like she was fighting for something real. Martina forced out another laugh, weaker this time. "You're making a mountain out of nothing, Carla. I'm just giving credit where it's due. She sews, I design. We're a team, right?" "A team?" Carla took another step, and Martina shuffled back like she'd been scorched. "Don't shovel that bull at me, Martina. I saw every damn stitch tonight, and here's the truth. This isn't yours, it's hers." She jabbed a finger at Lucía, steady and sharp, and the spotlight swung, drowning her in light. Lucía felt every pair of eyes in the room hit her again, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't laughs or pity. It was something new, something she couldn't put a name to. Martina opened her mouth to fire back, but Carla rolled right over her. "You can doodle your half-baked ideas on a napkin," she said, voice climbing, "but the one who turns it into something is this woman, right? Here, every dress, every thread, every last seam we saw tonight came straight from her hands, and you've got the balls to stand up here and rip her apart." The room started buzzing. Some heads nodded, others threw Martina dirty looks. Lucía's tears came quick, but she clenched her fists, holding them in. No one had ever had her back like this. No one had ever called out what she was worth. And now this stranger was shouting it to the rafters. Martina flailed her hands, grasping for control. "Carla, you're blowing this way out of proportion. This is a fashion show, not some daytime drama. Lucía gets how it works, don't you, Lucía?" She spun toward her, plastering on a fake grin. "Tell them, go on. Tell them you're cool with it." Lucía swallowed hard. The whole crowd was staring, waiting for her to speak. She wanted to say something, to stand up for herself, but her voice was stuck. She looked at Martina, those icy eyes that had stumped her flat so many times, then at Carla, who stood there fierce but patient, like she gave a damn. "I don't know what to say," she mumbled, so soft the mic barely picked it up. "You don't have to say a thing," Carla said, planting a hand on her shoulder. It was firm, warm, and Lucía's legs stopped shaking so bad. "I've got this. Martina snorted, loud and desperate. "What's this, Carla? Some big performance? If you've got a beef, hash it out with me later. This is my night." "No," Carla snapped, whipping around, eyes on fire. "This isn't your night, it's hers. And every sorry soul who busts their ass so you can strut around up here. You think I don't see through this game? I've worked with real designers, Martina, and you ain't one. You're a damn parasite." The crowd sucked in a collective breath. Claps broke out, quick and nervous, building into a wave. Martina's face went ghost white, mouth flapping, words nowhere to be found. "That's not fair," she managed, voice wobbling. I made this happen. The designs, the vision. Vision?" Carla laughed, a cold, cutting sound. "What vision? Scribbling crap and letting her clean it up. That's what I saw tonight. That black dress everyone lost their minds over didn't come from your brain. It came from her hands." She pointed at Lucía again, and the model in the black dress froze at the runway's end, stuck between staying put or bailing. Phones popped out, filming the mess. Raúl nudged the nasal woman. "Told you Martina's full of it." "Shut it, Raúl," she hissed, but couldn't peel her eyes off the stage. Lucía's head was spinning too fast to keep up. Carla's words pounded into her, but they didn't sting. They lifted something heavy off her chest. She glanced at Martina, red-faced and fists balled tight. She wanted to yell that, yeah, she'd sewn every damn thing, burned the midnight oil while Martina sipped cocktails with her clique. But she stayed mute, caught between panic and a spark igniting inside. "You're out of your mind, Carla," Martina said, voice splintering. "This is my show, my life. Lucía's just what?" Carla closed the gap, forcing Martina back again. "A tool? A punching bag? That's what you're trying to pull here." Dragging her up to make her the laughingstock, showing off how hilarious it is that someone like her does your dirty work. But it's not funny. It's pitiful. The applause hit like a freight train, loud and real. Lucía felt it rattle her bones. People jumped up, hollering bravo, shooting Martina looks that could kill. Martina stumbled, teetering in her heels, and for the first time Lucía saw fear flash in her eyes. "You don't know what you're talking about," Martina yelled, trying to shout over the noise. "I'm not letting you—" No one was listening. The crowd was on its feet, cheering for Carla, for Lucía, for something bigger than the show itself. Martina dropped the mic. It thudded hard on the stage and bolted, wobbling off through the curtains at the back. The claps kept coming, and Lucía stood there alone under the lights, Carla steady at her side. She didn't know what to do next. Didn't know how to step off, how to keep moving. Just knew something had flipped. For the first time, someone had seen her worth. And she wasn't sure she could carry it. The sun was barely peeking over the horizon when Lucía stumbled back to her workshop. It was 6 a.m, the day after the show, and the air carried that wet earth tang from a night of rain. She'd trudged from the bus stop barefoot, shoes dangling in her hand after they'd chewed her feet raw. Sleep hadn't come. After Martina bolted and the crowd lost it, everything blurred, lights flashing, cheers roaring, faces staring at her like she was somebody. Carla had stuck around a bit, saying stuff she couldn't quite grab onto. Then they'd hustled her out a back exit to dodge the mess. Now she was here alone again, in the workshop that stank of old fabric and sour coffee. She stepped inside, tossing her shoes by the door. The place was the same wreck, fabrics piled on the table, scissors buried somewhere, the fan humming, like it was begging to quit. But something felt off, different. She flopped into the creaky chair and stared at her hands, rough as gravel, calloused, nails chipped and ugly. The hands Martina had ripped apart in front of everyone. But the hands that had stitched that black dress, the ones that had pulled those claps from the crowd. For once, she didn't despise them. Her phone screeched, yanking her out of it. It was an old flip model, buttons half dead, parked next to an empty mug on the table. She snatched it up, hands shaky, and saw an unknown number. Hesitated, then flipped it open. "Hello?" she rasped, voice shot from hours of silence. "Lucía, it's Carla," came the steady reply, the voice that had cut through the chaos last night. "You holding up?" Lucía blinked, thrown. She hadn't figured Carla would call, not after all that. "Carla," she said, testing it out. I don't know. Wiped out, I guess." "No shock there," Carla said, softening a hair. "Last night was a damn circus. You make it home okay?" "Yeah, caught the bus," Lucía said, glancing around the workshop. "Didn't catch much sleep." "Wouldn't either," Carla said, pausing. "Just checking in." "What went down?" "That's no small thing," Lucía swallowed hard. Flashes hit her, Martina's smirk, the crowd's eyes, Carla's roar. "I don't know what to think," she admitted, clutching the phone. "It was all so fast. Feels like I'll wake up and be back at my machine, same as always." Carla let out a dry chuckle. "Not a dream, Lucía. It happened, and Martina screwed herself royally." "Where's she at?" Lucía asked, half afraid of the answer. "No idea," Carla said. "Took off after they dragged her off stage. Probably holed up somewhere licking her wounds. Don't sweat her. Folks are buzzing about you now." Lucía frowned. "Me? Why?" "Because I wasn't the only one who saw what you've got last night," Carla said. "Pull up your phone, check online. You'll see." The line went dead, and Lucía stared at the screen. She wasn't big on the internet, but she knew the basics. She opened the app she used for her niece's pics and started scrolling. Didn't take long. Her name was all over the place. Lucía Ramirez, the real talent behind Martina Valdez's show, one headline screamed. Photos flooded in. Her, on stage looking like a deer in headlights, the black dress gleaming, Carla pointing at her mid-rant. Comments piled up. What they did to her was awful. She deserves the props. Martina's a joke. Some stung harder. That designer better never show her face again. Lucía read until tears blurred the words. "What the hell is this?" she muttered, wiping her face with her sleeve. "Why do they give a damn now?" She stood and shuffled to the window, yanking it open. Cool air rushed in, slapping her awake. Outside, the street was quiet. A skinny dog sniffed at trash. A woman swept her porch. Life chugged along, but inside her something shifted. She didn't know what to do with it. So, hide, yell. So she just stood there, watching the dawn creep in, until her stomach growled loud enough to move her. In the little nook she called a kitchen, she grabbed a stale roll from a bag and ripped it apart, eating it dry on her unmade bed. The black dress still hung on her, wrinkled and dirty, but she didn't peel it off. It was proof last night wasn't a fluke. Chewing slow, she thought about Martina. Was she crying somewhere, plotting a comeback? Lucía didn't know, and for the first time it didn't eat at her as much. The day dragged on. No new jobs, so she poked around the workshop, swept the threads off the floor, stashed the scissors, folded some fabric. Every so often she checked her phone. Messages kept rolling in. "You're incredible. Don't let them walk on you anymore." A niece sent a voice note. "Aunt Lucía, you were at a fashion show. You're blowing up." Lucía cracked a smile but didn't hit back. What was there to say? By 3 the heat was back, pressing down heavy. She plopped into the chair with a glass of lukewarm water and eyed a blue fabric scrap from an old gig. Without overthinking it, she grabbed scissors and started cutting. Sewed up a simple blouse, the kind she'd wear herself. And for the first time in years, it wasn't for someone else. It was hers. The phone rang again as she was finishing the hem. Carla. Lucía snatched it up quick, heart racing. "Lucía?" Carla said, straight, to the point. "What you doing?" "Sewing a blouse." Lucía said, glancing at the blue fabric in her hands. Nothing fancy. Everything you touch is fancy, Carla shot back. No nonsense. Look, I'm not here to chit-chat. I need a seamstress for my next editorial. Big deal magazine shoot. And I want you. Nobody else. Lucía dropped the needle and it clattered to the floor. What? She choked out. Me, but I'm not. No excuses, Carla cut in. This isn't a handout. It's work. I saw what you can do, and you're the best damn seamstress I've seen. You in or out? Lucía stared at the half-finished blouse. Thought about the nights she'd gone without sleep, the hands Martina mocked, the years she'd stitched in the shadows while others took the bows. Then, last night, the applause, Carla's voice ringing out. A little fire sparked inside, quiet but real. Yeah, she said, voice steadier than she'd expected. I'm in. Damn right, Carla said. I'll send details tomorrow. Get some rest. This is just the beginning. She hung up and Lucía set the phone down. Her hands trembled, but not from nerves. She got up, yanked the ratty curtains wide, and let the daylight pour in. The sun was high now, the street alive, dog sniffing, woman sweeping, a kid pedaling by. Out there, nothing had changed. In here, everything had. She didn't know what came next. Didn't know if she could handle Carla's job. But for the first time, the needle wasn't a shackle. It was hers to swing. And that was enough. Across town, Martina sat alone in her apartment. Her phone was off, flung onto the couch next to an empty wine bottle. Curtains drawn tight, silence choking the air. She'd spent the night scrolling, watching her name get dragged through the mud. The texts had dried up, swapped out for venom, fake, crook, loser. She'd set out to crush Lucía. Instead, she'd tanked herself. She flicked her phone on for a second just to check. Nothing but a lone message from her assistant. Stay away from the studio tomorrow. She killed it again and sank deeper into the cushions, eyes hollow. The world kept spinning outside, but for her, it had ground to a halt. Lucía, back in her workshop, ran one more stitch through the blue blouse. It wasn't flawless, but it was hers, and right now, that was plenty.